February 21st, 2012 meeting of the Public Safety Committee. As always, the first item on the agenda is the agenda, and also the minutes of our last meeting. I'll entertain any motions.
I move that we accept the agenda as set forth.
You know, before we vote on that issue, it occurred to me today that on item number 4, which is the Church Street Marketplace, there's actually two major topics we're going to be talking about tonight. One is the proposed trespass rules, and the other one is going to be the proposed panhandling rules. And I don't know if you guys have a preference as to whether we just sort of play it by ear with those items, or whether you want to break them out into two separate items.
My preference would be to break it out as two separate items. I think different issues are raised by each one.
I'm fine with that.
All right, so is that a motion to, I mean, I would propose a motion to amend the agenda so that item 4 becomes item 4A, which will be the trespass ordinance, and 4B, which would be the panhandle.
So moved.
That's friendly, or we don't do friendly, that's second.
No friendly.
Nothing friendly.
Sorry, someone right. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, how about the minutes?
I likewise move that we accept the minutes as drafted.
And I will second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, so the next item on the agenda is the public forum. And can I just see by a show of hands who's in here who wants to speak at the public forum? All right, so all right. I am going to, we've only got 2 hours allotted for this meeting, and we need to reserve enough time so that the committee can actually discuss the items. So I'm going to try to keep the public forum to 30 minutes, if possible. So I would ask that, I'd respectfully request anybody who's speaking to try to keep your comments to under 3 minutes, if that's possible, just so that everybody has a chance to speak and that we'll still have time to discuss. So with that, I guess we'll go around the room. I mean, who wanted to speak over here? Anyone?
I think it would be better for...
And I'm sorry, just in general, can you identify yourself?
My name is Fareed. I live in Burlington. I'm also a member of the Vermont Worker Center.
Last name?
Munarsyah, Munarsyah. I am here specifically to speak out about the proposed expansion of the trespassing law. I think we would be better to put our time and resources into directly identifying and confronting poverty instead of criminalizing the victims of poverty. So Church Street Marketplace Association should be putting money and resources into organizations and agencies who deal and help with homeless people and people who are panhandling, instead of spending resources to enforcing this so-called panhandling law. Thank you.
Anybody else want to speak? Oh, ma'am.
I'm Sandra Clausen. I'm a Burlington resident, and I just wanted to also speak out against expanding the trespassing laws. I feel that it's a way of discriminating against people and can be utilized to target people that that may not want for some reason. And I think it's discriminatory, and I think Burlington, of all cities in the United States, should not be going this direction. It's really, really frightening to me to be expanding this particular ordinance.
Anybody else want to speak? Go ahead.
I'm Jeff Nick. I'm Chair of the Marketplace Commission. Both of these issues are very important to the business community that make up the Church Street Marketplace. We have had a number of incidents of very, very negative antisocial behavior on the street that we've been dealing with for quite some time. A lot of the surveys we've done, this shows up as a very important issue to both our merchants, our fee payers, and our customers. We have a lot of different issues that play out in the street on a daily basis that really detracts from the atmosphere that we're trying to promote in the street. People feel unsafe many times when they come downtown to experience Church Street. I feel that we as a society need to aspire to higher standards for folks that act out on the street. It's very detrimental to what happens to this crown jewel really of what we have down here. It's really the economic engine of Burlington, and we strive to make it a place that's inclusive for everyone, not just the folks that like to act out. Has anybody ever experienced Church Street at its prime when you have a lot of street entertainers in the street? Those street entertainers just can't go out there and do that. Obviously, many times they have a hat out there looking for tips, but they have to come to the Marketplace Commission. They have to aspire. They have to abide by certain standards that are set. They have to stand up. They cannot play an instrument or juggle in the same place for a long period of time. They have to be a certain distance from a doorway. They cannot be in the 9-foot right of way. And so I think it's only right that we ask anybody on the street who might be looking for a handout to really maintain the same standards that we ask for street entertainers. It's not that difficult. And I think it would make everybody feel much safer as we come downtown. Thank you.
Thank you. Did you want to say something? I saw your hand.
Yep. My name's Paul Feiner. I'm the Safety and Security Manager at City Market. Obviously, we're not directly on Church Street, but I want to come across as in favor of the proposed expansion of the trespassing ordinance. There's a significant increase of issues that's been going on downtown, in all of downtown, and we feel that the Burlington Police Department needs the ability to trespass individuals as punishment for bad behavior, whether it be theft, disorderly conduct, airing personal business in public spaces. And just as an example, last fiscal year, our store alone issued 75 notices of trespass to individuals. And in 7 months for this fiscal year already, we're already at 93. And so things are just increasing and they're not getting any better. And so we're definitely in favor of the trespassing ordinance.
Thank you. Mr. Levitt?
Sure. Thanks. My name is Jonathan Levitt. I'm a community organizer in Burlington. And I find this discussion really interesting because I only became aware of it very recently. And I think it's really endemic of a problem of democracy we have here in City Hall, where some people's voices, like the Church Street Marketplace's voice, have a very outsized voice in legislation. And I came actually tonight with my own legislation that I'd love to see City Council take up in an effort of parity to show that there's no special privileges given to Church Street Marketplace as perhaps an alternative way with which we could address issues of poverty. I think it's really interesting that we can talk about issues of poverty in a vacuum where only people who are experiencing poverty are somehow criminalized, and a system which has seen an income inequality grow faster in Vermont than any other state but one for the 15 years before 2007 is left out of the discussion, where the fact that 81% of Vermonters can't afford the median-priced home is left completely out of the discussion, where facts like these, which show again and again that we aren't meeting fundamental human rights obligations of our city government, are left out of the discussion, when the incomes for the top 1% of Vermonters have tripled in the past few decades. That, according to Sam Houston University, that's left completely out of the discussion. And all we're left with is Dickinsonian laws that criminalize, as previous speakers were saying, our most vulnerable. I'm not sure what happened to our capacity to love our neighbors, but I would like to think that we can come back to that. That we can look across class divides, that we can see in this worst economic crisis since the 1930s, a real need to love our neighbors again. That as a society, that we have fundamental obligations to take care of each other. And if that's not what government exists for, if government only exists to criminalize our most vulnerable at a time when stats like this keep piling up, then I'm not sure why we do all of this. But I would love to see council take up some legislation that actually tries to address the root causes of poverty and not just criminalize the symptoms.
Thank you. Did you want to say something?
I do. My name is Liza Cowan. I am a resident of Ward 6. I used to be in retail. I love retail. I probably love shopping as much or more than most of you in here. And I want our retail environment to thrive. And I want our tourist industry to thrive because I think it's a good, clean industry. That said, I think that the Church Street Marketplace, which was, as I understand, designed to ensure that our downtown thrived and that our resources and tourism did not go out to suburban malls, and I think that was a wonderful idea. But I think it possibly has outlived its usefulness. Now I'm not expecting anybody to dismantle the Church Street Marketplace. I know that that's a pipe dream. But I think that the Church Street Marketplace as it exists is a hybrid between public and private management. Makes it very difficult to function as a public space because it's not actually public space, it's public-private space. It's controlled by a commission whose mission is to improve sales and improve the quality of the retail businesses that exist on that street. So it's a street that's about consumption, not about the public. Now, to me, one of the ways, and I think you're dealing with issues of what seems to be a congregation, larger congregation, a concentration of panhandling and obstructive behavior and obstructing commerce. And I think that one of the reasons that this happens is because downtown and Church Street is the place that people are directed to go, tourists and residents alike, as their luxury shopping and entertainment area. The marketplace in the city of Burlington focus all their marketing resources on bringing tourism to Church Street and to the waterfront, ignoring our other neighborhoods. I had a retail business in the South End for many years, and I'm telling you, we languish over there because the city does not understand that a city is made of neighborhoods. If the city were made of neighborhoods, and if as much time and marketing and care were put into a dispersal of our public spaces and understanding of our public spaces, people would not have to congregate only on Church Street. And people do have a need to congregate. People like to be in public. It's our right as citizens in a democracy to congregate in public, not just for political expression, but to meet our friends and to see our neighbors and to be neighbors with one another. And so I think, what Johnny and the others are saying about caring for our neighbors, our impoverished neighbors, is really important. And one additional way to do that is to get rid of the stranglehold of the Church Street market.
Thank you.
So, my name is Phil Merrick. I'm a resident of Burlington. And I'm here tonight to talk about both these issues, I guess, as everyone is. I find it interesting right off the bat that it's being made an issue about poverty. It's not an issue about poverty as far as I can tell. It's an issue about behavior. Behavior is important to our tourism industry. It's very important to keeping business localized. It's very important that we're not getting in cars and driving out to Williston and polluting the air when you go shopping. It's very important that we maintain a vibrant business community in our downtown. And Church Street does a very good job of that. And it is expanding. We're talking about expanding it now to go down to the waterfront, which is a huge, it's going to triple the size of the area that we focus on as our downtown. However, these particular rules and regulations are about behavior. I can be wealthy and say the F word and yell at somebody, and I'm going to get the no trespass. It's not about being poor, it's about behavior. Now, as far as panhandling, I think it's ridiculous that we're even talking about this, because all we're doing is trying to level the playing field. I'm a musician. I go down to Church Street. I have to go before somebody and play my music to a group who will then say I can go out and do this thing, which is to put a pan out there, collect money, and I have to follow certain regulations. I want it to be an even playing field so that when somebody goes out there with their shirt on and with their no shoes on, panhandling, it's not about poverty, because I have seen some of the panhandlers and they're not poor. Now some of them are, I agree, but this is not a poverty issue. It's not an issue that we need to talk about in those terms. And if you're going to talk about civil liberties, let's talk about equal rights. And I, as a musician, am willing to follow the rules because I want Church Street Marketplace to succeed. And I want to see a change in the panhandling rules because I want Church Street Marketplace to succeed, make the money, and have the tax dollars to spend on the programs that help the poor. Because the people that are panhandling, there are all kinds of services available in the city. Now, they're not perfect.
Bill, I'm going to have to ask you to wrap it up.
Okay, I'm done.
Thank
You
you.
know what I'm going to say.
Sure. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jemina Robinson. I'm a resident of Burlington and a longtime street musician, sanctioned by the lovely Church Street Marketplace. And I actually feel quite differently. I consider this to be a state, and more importantly a city, which is ahead of the game in reference to progressive policies that deal with social welfare and economic justice. And I would be heartbroken to see us fall into the pattern of the times by criminalizing homelessness and poverty. We have options as a community. We can try and sweep our poor and homeless under the rug in the interest of tourism, or we can do what we're more inclined to do, which is to focus on solutions. It would be a detriment to our reputation as a community to follow these other states' examples and install blinders to hide our economic victims when we're perfectly capable of putting our time and funds into providing solutions to not just poverty, but unemployment, hunger, mental and physical disability, addiction, education, and homelessness issues, which I think we suffer, and I'll be quick. I recognize the necessity of building a community of small business men and women who feel comfortable investing in downtown Burlington. But criminalizing poverty is not our way as Vermonters, nor should it be. We make decisions here that are not necessarily business interested, but community interested. And I think there's a way for us to work together to, we pride ourselves on hard work, perseverance, and community, and these are principles that should guide our officials' decisions, not the interests of business. Every businesswoman or man who makes a decision to work Church Street Marketplace, invest in Church Street Marketplace, should recognize that we as a community focus on social justice and not on the criminalization of poverty. These are difficult issues, but we as a community are quite prepared to deal with them as a community instead of brushing them under the rug. Thank you.
Thank you. Sir?
Yes. My name is Jim Ramey. I'm, I've tabled on Church Street for the past decade or so. I've had organized rallies where we've been permitted. But I want to talk about one of the few times that I've actually felt threatened on Church Street. Is that was, I've had loud arguments on Church Street with Republicans and conservatives or whatever, and I've never felt threatened. They never felt threatened by me. I know that. And all kinds of political debates, all that stuff. But one time I felt threatened was when September 20th, I think is what it was, when we had a rally out here for the execution of Troy Davis. We were trying to stop it that day, trying to at least raise awareness about it. At the end of that rally, after we had it was a complicated rally, but after we had thought that Troy Davis was executed, we were pulled aside by two men with guns and given basically what would amount to a trespassing warning citation that we've since been apologized to for it. But it's that kind of assault on free speech that I think is a really important thing that we need to go against in this bill and this encroachment on our own liberties. I think that's a real problem. I think that we've seen it on Church Street already, and I don't think that we need more laws saying that we giving men with guns more ability to threaten us. And that's again, that's from a long-term community member and participant of the Church Street events.
Thank you. Did any other of you in the back want to speak? Or?
Yes, hi. My name is Bill Ochin, resident of Burlington since 1982. My first question is item 4B open for discussion now, or is that set for another time?
You can speak to anything you want.
All right, since
even if
4A
it's not on
is
the agenda.
okay.
This is free for all, public forum. So.
Okay, I like that format. Well, I'll just keep my remarks to 4A. I'd like to remind the people here that the streets belong to all of us and not to they're not the property of the Church Street Marketplace. I recognize that there is an increase in problems with behaviors on the street, and I think that it's undeniable that there are economic causes for that. And that is why we have the police, to deal with problems as they arise. That is their job. My grandfather was a New York City cop. He actually worked the Bowery during the 30s, and he would not have supported any kind of legislation that would restrict people's movements. He was a very conservative Republican, and I grew up around his values. But he would not be supporting this kind of bill. His belief was that the police have their job to do, and there are already standards of behavior in place, and that's what we need to work on. We don't need to expand it.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Annie Jordan. I'm a resident of Richmond, but I've been a resident in Burlington for 15 years, working with most of the nonprofits in this town, specifically Safe Spectrum for 5 years. I've worked with the homeless youth that are directly attacked quite often by the city marketplace or downtown Church Street Marketplace for their behaviors and actions. And I think it's really, really important that we go back to thinking about what is, you want to talk about behavior, what I think brings to attention is all the threads in which these things interconnect, whether it's economics, whether it's someone's age, where their mentality literally isn't at a point to act in a sense differently until we talk about community. How do we hold each other differently? We want people to thrive and have a good economy. We also want to take care of the people who live here, not just tourists who come here. You know, I'm not a participant. I have money. I could buy stuff on Church Street. I don't because of the way you treat my kids, like straight up. And then again, my biggest concern is really the openness of the language, and the psychologist, the openness of the language of this bill to allow the police. I specifically have felt most threatened in this state as well, mostly just by the police always constantly watching, hovering over, moving. Like it's just so violent, even just how someone stands near me with a gun, and I'm not holding a gun, but is really looking at the dangers of which that could be allowed to extend to lots of different frameworks in which people are just gathering as humans. As the lady was saying, like, we're humans, we want to be social sometimes. And to specifically say you can only gather on Church Street if you only speak my language, if you only look a certain way, if you only dress a certain way. I'm just saying, this is how it can be extended and how it has been extended. I've seen it, I've seen people get arrested for certain acts like that. That is incredibly dangerous. So I just want to point that out. I'm not saying that everyone here is specifically trying to do those things. I'm just saying it allows that option, the way the language is written, to be extended for that to happen. So, thank you.
Thank you. Do you want to say anything, or?
Yes. My name is Robert Kaboris. I'm a resident of Burlington. And actually, echoing a little bit of what some of my neighbors here have been saying, I want to talk about who's going to be most affected by both the trespassing and the panhandling ordinances or drafts that are up for discussion tonight. First, it's people of color. Anywhere where you've seen legislation like this, in New York with the stop and frisk, in San Francisco with similar anti-sitting laws, it's very clear that people of color, being black and brown, bear the brunt of police harassment that comes with it. Secondly, people with disabilities. Plenty of people who I've seen panhandling on Church Street have disabilities, and in large part that's probably a contributing factor to the fact that they have to panhandle to make a living. Furthermore, they can't move around necessarily every 30 minutes as part of the language of this legislation actually proposes. Beyond that, of course, there's the homeless population of Burlington, there's the unemployed of Burlington. These are people that are already the most marginalized people in our society. And highly represented in those, for instance, are Army or military veterans who are overrepresented in both of those populations. So that's who this is going to affect. But that's not the only group it's going to affect. It's actually going to affect everyone. I want to explain a little bit why. This legislation written by the 1%, and that's what the Church Street Marketplace represents, the 1% of Burlington or of Vermont, this is set up to divide us. This is set up to intimidate us and to make us feel unsafe, unsafe from our neighbors and unsafe from the police. And it's not a big mystery as to why that's happening right now. I mean, these 1%ers are seeing an awakening happening around them. They're seeing people finally stand up against injustice and exploitation and oppression, and that probably makes a lot of them a little uncomfortable. So the easiest thing to do is to scapegoat and to make us feel like the real danger is someone that we know, someone that we see walking down Church Street. In reality, I think homelessness is a very big issue in our community, but I don't think that the way to solve that is to pin it on homeless people. Or panhandlers, or people that have no place else to go but to be on Church Street or in the park. But it's actually, I think the 1% is the biggest obstacle to resolving those problems, to fixing poverty, to creating employment. And this is a contributing factor to that. So I want to just say that it's clear, going around with few exceptions, that the 99%, the people of Burlington, not the businesses of Burlington, are against both of these pieces of proposed legislation. And we're here to say that an injury to one is an injury to all. We're all affected by this, and we oppose every part of what's being proposed in sections 4A and B.
Thank you. Mr. Young.
Hi, Matt Young, Burlington resident. I've been charged for the past 11 years with providing or help provide social justice to the people downtown through Howard Center, through the police department, through the marketplace. My observations are much different than others' observations here. What I believe the no trespass ordinance can do in specific limited cases is provide some balance. I think it's demeaning and naive to say that people who are challenged psychiatrically, medically, with jobs, homeless, enjoy disruption. What we are trying to do here, after a lot of conversation, is target willful behavior. Your point of behavior as opposed to poverty, I think we're making distinctions here, but I believe this is targeting willful behavior. Somebody who says, I know what I'm doing, I'm going to continue to do it, you can't stop me. I don't know if this falls to the police department. The marketplace, the police department, City Hall, and others have tried to provide quite a bit of help to the individuals who inhabit our downtown. Terrific people. Psychiatric disabilities, homeless, substance abuse, youth, people who have behavioral management problems, serious functional impairment, severe persistent functional impairment. Everybody's welcome to be downtown. Everybody. But when your behavior becomes willful, and you have a history of such behavior, and we are not going to charge you with crimes, or the police or whoever, this is sending a message that this is not acceptable. It's not acceptable acceptable for people with psychiatric disabilities or people with poverty. They don't enjoy this behavior downtown. They feel threatened by it, they feel frightened by it, and we see it every day, and we've heard this for 11 years. We are trying to provide services for individuals downtown. If a message has to be sent to people who behave in a disruptive manner willfully, then that's what the downtown believes we have to do to make this experience enjoyable for all, not to target messy people, but only willful behavior in specific limited instances. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Walter Norton. I've listened to what everyone's had to say here, and over the course of the past few months, I've been at the mayor's debate, and I've been with the Occupy people, and I've talked to some of the policemen, and all of the rest. And what it always seems to come back to is that it's kind of an us versus them mentality. It's like we can't help these people because we don't have enough, so we're going to do whatever the heck we want to do to them. And that's what I'm kind of hearing here. It's like, we're business, we want to make our business, we're making some rules, but we're not going to pay any money back into the community to help the people who can't possibly help themselves. I mean, it's unconscionable. The so-called state of family-friendly values, ha ha ha. I mean, God, some of these people are actually dying on the street. Occupy came along and said, help us, we've got a tent city here, we'll do what we can for these people. And the answer was, get out of the park. And then somebody died a couple weeks later. And then another person died. And I've kind of lost count of, the people who are actually dying, who have serious needs, which people who have money could go, yeah, geez, maybe it's going to hurt me a little bit, but I'm going to give some. And when Ben & Jerry's did that, everyone went, wow, cool, look at these guys, let's buy their ice cream. And so they paid a little bit of money to help the community, and they got tons of money back. And that's kind of what I'm hearing here. It's like Jonathan said, he actually talked about love and, compassion and all of those things which kind of get tossed into the waste paper basket because people are like, hey, it's a tough time. Well, maybe it's a tough time because people threw all of those values into the waste paper basket one day, and I hope that that the city of Burlington can maybe start to get those values back and teach the nation a lesson, and maybe the rest of the world. Maybe I haven't phrased it in exactly the right way, but I think everybody knows exactly what I'm talking about. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Did anyone in this corner of the room want to speak? No. Sheriff, did you want to speak? Jay?
Yeah, my name is Jay Voss. I live in Ward 5. Last year when the proposed sitting ban was being discussed in this committee, I made a comment that the spirit of generosity in Burlington has gone by the wayside. And if these two laws are made in Burlington, that'll just increase that sentiment that I had. Before I came here tonight, I was talking with a friend in the New North End who was a Republican, and I told him what was happening, and he said, I mean, that's all really going against the spirit of Vermont, and he's a conservative Republican. What really gripes me is that in the last couple of months, we've had 2 people who died in the city. There, as this gentleman said, there might be more people, but the person who was in the tent and killed himself, he was a homeless person in the Occupy tent, and then the gentleman who froze outdoors over the winter. And it's all to say, well, that's really sad that happened. But I never saw or ever heard any of the mayoral candidates or any of the city councilors actually make a statement about these 2 deaths and the fact that we should be getting to the root causes of them and not just applying Band-Aids and getting people like these 2 gentlemen who died out of our sight. And that's exactly what I I see happening in Burlington on Church Street and now expanding to the surrounding streets. I mean, the logic of this city is to enforce us, or try to enforce a smoking ban, and yet 2 people died, and this is what happens. Thank you.
Thank you. Sir?
My name is Stephen Marshall. I stand in opposition to this council resolution. I can't believe it's even being proposed. The presence of this resolution, the proposal of this resolution is a symptom of the increasing divide between the haves and the have-nots. It's exactly a symptom of that increasing divide. So I am a person who believes in government as the institutional realization of community. But that means the government needs to be about taking care of everybody and not just protecting the interests of people with property and businesses. As members of the community, people with property and business have a due right to protection from the government in the same way that everybody does. That means you don't put up barriers to people doing what they do with their lives in order to protect one segment of that community. It means that as a community, in the body of your government, you say, how do we fix these problems without using coercive force? This statute is about how we employ the police power of the state to make life easier for business. Well, I say, if the businesses come forward and say, how can we solve these problems? How can we, with increased tax revenues on the wealthiest, make life better in this state for everybody? Then the community businesses and the community as a whole will all be one. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry. You wanted to speak, right? Was there anybody else who wanted to speak? We're kind of back from where we started. You did? Okay.
Yeah.
Why don't you go?
Okay. Hi, I'm Tobin Jordan. I'm a community member here, and I'm going to keep this short, but just coming in here, I feel like I have something to say. I believe this bill is a direct violation of these homeless people's First Amendment rights. I believe they have every right to occupy the space that they do, and I believe if you're going to directly address harassment and lewd behaviors, you're going to have to rewrite this bill in a way to better address that. And I believe you need to leave this to direct cases of harassment and leave that to police and not just sweep these people under the rug. Thank you.
Thank you. Hold on a second. Andy, did you want to speak?
Yeah. My name is Kelly Devine, and I want to reiterate that I think that this initiative is about behavior and not about income level. There's nothing in it that is specific to anybody of any income level, and what it really is about is how people conduct themselves when they're in our public space. I don't see a problem with holding people to a certain standard of behavior. I come down to the marketplace, I bring my children, and people are swearing, and they're using very vile language. People are sometimes publicly drunk downtown or using substances. I've been harassed by aggressive panhandling, and also felt that in certain areas of the downtown, the behavior and the level of anger that people are expressing towards each other makes me and my family feel uncomfortable. I think Church Street is a real important part of our downtown, and I want it to be a place for everybody. I want it to be a place for families, for all of our neighbors, for people who want to come visit there, for students, for anyone who wants to use it. And I don't think that your level of income or how you're dressed or how well educated you are or not gives you any exemption from being held to a standard of how you conduct yourself when you're in a public space. I've asked people to curtail their language around my children, and I've been called names and sworn at myself, maybe because I'm dressed a certain way, I don't know. I think that we need to, as a community, work together to address just